They say success has no smell, but that night for John, it smelled like Italian leather and fresh ink on a contract. It was 7:42 p.m. when the final signature landed on the dotted line. A $10 million deal. Closed. Complete. Concrete. It hadn't come easy. This wasn't some lucky windfall or stroke of genius. This was the result of 9 months of clawing uphill, of cold boardrooms and red-eye flights, of shaking hands with liars, smiling through betrayal, and staying awake long after his team had crashed. This was grit, not luck. This was what ambition looked like when it bled, and now he'd won. John stood at the edge of the downtown skyline, briefcase in hand, heart pounding beneath his dress shirt. The client, an eccentric billionaire who fancied theatrics, offered one last surprise: a handcrafted duffel bag. Smooth, dark brown leather. Elegant. Heavy. "Here," he said with a half smirk. "This is what 10 million feels like." John unzipped the bag. Inside, bundles upon bundles of what looked like pristine cash. But the truth? It was all fake. High-quality replicas. Crisp and clean, but utterly worthless. A prop, a gesture, a symbol. And somehow, it felt perfect, because it wasn't about the cash. It was about what the cash represented. Every sleepless night, every time someone told him to give up. Every sacrifice that no one clapped for. All of it was in that bag. He lifted the weight with both hands, not heavy enough to strain his back, but heavy enough to carry the history behind it. He smiled, a long, quiet smile. This bag didn't make him rich. It proved he already was. John came home that night walking a little taller, not because of pride, but because he finally had something to bring home that mattered. Not just words, not just plans, but proof. The kind of proof a man works decades for. When he opened the front door, the house was quiet, warm, dimly lit, and then he saw her, Rhea. She was standing by the kitchen counter in a pair of silk pajamas, barefoot, holding a wine glass. Her smile wasn't loud. It was soft, but sharp, like satin hiding a blade. "Hey, stranger," she said playfully. "Rough day at the top?" John laughed and stepped closer. He placed the duffel bag on the counter like a trophy, gently but deliberately. She raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" "A symbol," he replied. 10 million in proof. Her eyes widened, not with disbelief, but with hunger. She reached out and touched the bag slowly, as if it were sacred. "Is it real?" she whispered. "Technically," John smirked, "but no, it's all show, fake bills. The real money gets transferred on Monday." She laughed with him, but her fingers didn't leave the leather. They lingered. Then she looked up at him. Warm, curious, dangerous. "You trust me with it?" she asked sweetly. John, without missing a beat, nodded. "Why wouldn't I? You're my wife." Rhea's smile stretched like silk, tightening over a secret. "Sweet," she said, sipping her wine. "Soft, but deadly." She picked up the bag and kissed his cheek. "I'll keep it in the closet tonight, just in case." John didn't question her. Why would he? It had been a good day, a great one. He kissed her goodnight and collapsed into bed. He didn't know. That was the last time he'd ever see her in silk, or smile like that again. John woke up the next morning to silence. Not the soft kind, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes your stomach tighten before your mind even knows why. The sunlight slid through the curtains, warming the room, but something felt cold. He stretched his hand across the bed. The sheets were cool. Too cool. No warmth. No Rhea. He blinked, sat up, looked around. No slippers. No robe draped over the chair like always. No sound of water running from the bathroom. No scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Gone. He got out of bed, heart thudding, now not loud, but deep. He stepped into the closet. Empty. Her half of the closet bare. No clothes, no jewelry, no boxes, not even a stray hairpin. The hangers swayed slightly, like they too were in shock. John backed away slowly, confused, disoriented. He turned to the kitchen. There on the counter, where her coffee mug usually waited, was something else. A single piece of folded paper. He picked it up, unfolded it. His heart stopped. "Thanks for the money, babe. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. Good luck starting from scratch. Rhea." No signature, no apology, just exit. John stood still, the note in one hand, the silence in the other. And then he laughed, not because it was funny, but because in that moment he understood exactly what had just happened. And what she didn't know was that the real story was only just beginning. "Thanks for the money, babe. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. Good luck starting from scratch." That was all the note said. No full stop, no apology, no guilt. Just words. Cold, sharp, surgical. John read it once, twice, a third time. Each reading cut a little deeper, not because he didn't expect betrayal, but because of how ordinary she made it sound. Like walking out of a coffee shop, like deleting a number, like throwing away a receipt. 3 lines. That was all it took to erase a life they built for years. He stood in the kitchen with the morning sun on his back and a letter in his hand that burned like acid. But he didn't cry. He didn't scream. He smiled. Not the smile of a man broken, but the smile of a man already prepared for hell. You see, John didn't build empires by being naive. He didn't trust blindly. Not anymore. Somewhere deep down in a corner of his mind he never lit with hope, he knew something like this could happen. And because of that, he had already written a different ending. It looked like money, it felt like money, it even smelled like money. But the bag Rhea stole was a masterpiece of deception, custom-made. Stitched by a discreet firm John had worked with for years, designed to look and weigh exactly like a real $10 million cash bag. Inside, crisp stacks of high-grade legal tender replicas, so convincing they could fool a camera or a criminal with a motive. And embedded deep within the inner lining, beneath a logo tag stitched in silk thread, was a GPS tracker. Not bulky, not obvious, just quiet and waiting. You see, John wasn't just a businessman. He dealt in risk. He dined with deception. And he'd been burned before. So when this deal began taking shape, when the money started talking and the power shifted rooms, he listened to his gut, the one voice in the room that never lied. He had the fake bag made 6 months ago just in case, not because he didn't trust Rhea, but because he knew what love could look like right before it turned into betrayal. And now, that bag, the one she carried like stolen treasure, wasn't her ticket to freedom. It was her leash. John didn't chase. He didn't scream or slam doors or call her phone 50 times. No, he walked into his home office, sat down at his desk, and opened the tracker app. A red dot blinked into view. Southbound, Highway 17, 68 miles per hour. He smiled. Then he opened another tab, Cloud Surveillance, the front door camera, timestamp, 2:17 a.m. Rhea, in a hoodie and leggings, sneakers, hair pulled back, no makeup, no hesitation. She moved quickly, silently. She knew what she was doing. At 2:19, she paused at the curb. A car pulled up, and out stepped Darren. Tall, unshaven, too familiar. John didn't flinch. He watched the screen like it was a business report, like it didn't hurt, like it didn't matter. But his jaw clenched, because Darren wasn't just anybody. He was the guy who used to play poker at John's place on Saturdays, the guy who always showed up uninvited to barbecues, the guy whose jokes Rhea laughed at a little too loudly. They kissed. Not passionate, but familiar. Too familiar. Then together they lifted the duffel bag into the trunk like they were placing a crown on stolen land. John hit pause, frozen on the frame. Rhea, Darren, the bag, and John. He smiled again, but it was a different smile now. Not of shock, not of pain. the smile of a man who sees every piece on the board and knows exactly where the checkmate will land. Narration. They thought they were free. A cheap rental cabin on the outskirts of town. Old pinewood walls, stained curtains, a broken porch light that flickered when the wind blew. To them, it must have felt like victory, a hideout, a fresh start, a millionaire's first night of freedom. Darren parked the car in the gravel driveway, grinning. Rhea giggled as they hurried inside, duffel bag in hand. Candles, champagne, music from a half-broken Bluetooth speaker. They were reckless with joy, drunk on adrenaline. They placed the bag on the bed like a prize, like a promise. Rhea unzipped it, breath catching in her throat. And then, silence. No gasps of joy, no laughter, only the sound of paper shifting. Too light, too dry, too wrong. Darren leaned over, his grin faded. He reached in, grabbed a stack. He flipped through the bills. Fake. Another stack? Same. And another. All fake. Is this some kind of joke? He muttered. Rhea's hands began to shake. Her eyes darted, looking for something, anything to explain. She tore into the bag desperate, but it was all the same. Crisp, printed, useless. Her breath hitched. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She had traded her marriage for Monopoly money, and somewhere, not too far away, John was watching. The phone buzzed. Blocked number. John took a sip of coffee. The steam curled around his face as he answered, speaker on. Calm. Ready. John? Her voice sliced through the line, ragged, panicked. What the hell is this? He smiled. Good morning, sunshine, he said softly. Sleeping in the woods now, are we? You gave me fake money. No, he said with razor-sharp calm. You stole fake money. There's a difference. Rhea cursed. Her voice cracked. You planned this? You bet I did. A beat of silence. Breathing. Trembling. You're a psycho. No, John replied, tone even unfazed. I'm a strategist. And I told you once, I only trust people who've earned it. And you just proved why I shouldn't. He let the silence breathe, then added casually, like talking about the weather, oh, and by the way, you and Darren might want to pack up and run. What do you mean? John refreshed the tracker, still pinging, still exact. I let your little heist play out, he said, but now I'm calling the police, reporting the bag stolen with both your names and your location. You wouldn't? Oh, but I already did. Click. He ended the call. Not with anger, not with drama, but with strategy. It didn't take long. 20 minutes after John hung up, the GPS signal stopped moving. They'd either ditched the car or the bag or both, but it didn't matter. John had already filed the report. Theft of symbolic corporate property, video footage of the theft, license plate identification, affidavit naming Rhea and Darren as the last in possession. And the best part, the client's legal team had copied the report, stamped it with a federal business fraud tag. That meant one thing. It was no longer personal. It was criminal. At 10:12 a.m., John's lawyer sent him a photo. A cheap gravel driveway, 2 squad cars, blue lights flashing. And in the center, Darren, face down on the hood, arms cuffed behind his back. Rhea, barefoot, tear-streaked, screaming into the air like the world owed her something. Attached to the image was a short message. Both arrested without incident. Bag recovered. Charges pending. Do you want to press for felony or walk away? John stared at the photo. He remembered the Rhea from a year ago, in heels, silk, and power. And now the CEO's wife was trending on social media as the thief in silk pajamas. He didn't feel joy or rage, just completion. The empire she tried to rob was now the thing crushing her. 2 days later, John sat in a quiet police station conference room. A clock ticked. A cheap fan whirred in the corner. Everything was still, except for Rhea in the next room. Held, but not charged yet. A detective laid down the options. Felony theft, wire fraud. Corporate misconduct. John could press charges. He had every right, but he didn't. Instead, he picked up the waiver form and calmly said, "I'm not here for blood. I'm here for the truth." He signed, line after line, initialed every paragraph, then paused, looked up, but on one condition, he said, voice calm but cold, that the arrest records remain public. No sealing, no favors, no legal gymnastics. The room went quiet. Ria's lawyer blinked. "She'll lose everything," he said. "She has no priors, no convictions. This one mistake, please." John leaned back in his chair. His voice dropped, but it carried weight. "Exactly. I want the next man she meets to Google her name and see exactly who she is." There was no anger in his tone, no revenge, just justice. Simple, unforgiving, permanent. He handed the papers back. She stole from her husband, ran off with his friend, lied without blinking. She can have a second chance when she earns it. He stood, buttoned his jacket, walked to the door, and as he left, he turned to the lawyer one last time. Tell her, good luck, starting from scratch. While Ria's name trended for all the wrong reasons, John's name was climbing for the right ones. He didn't throw interviews. He didn't post angry rants. He didn't even mention her name. What he did was build, silently, powerfully, deliberately. He expanded his company into 2 new markets in less than a month. Clients who had watched the scandal unfold were now reaching out, not out of pity, but respect. Because in a world obsessed with drama, John had responded with discipline, and that was rare. But it wasn't just business that changed, it was him. One morning, sitting in his home office, the same chair where he tracked Ria's betrayal, he wrote an article on LinkedIn. Title, "What I Learned About Trust When Someone I Loved Tried to Steal Everything." He didn't name names. He didn't need to. The message was universal. Guard your empire, even from those who smile beside you. Within 72 hours, the post went viral. CEOs reposted it, authors quoted it. University professors asked to share it with their ethics classes. Suddenly, John wasn't just a businessman, he was a voice, a symbol of control, recovery, and leadership in the face of betrayal. Offers poured in. Speaking engagements, book deals, a documentary producer called asking for rights. And through it all, John stayed grounded. No showboating, no gloating, just the quiet, steady rebuilding of an empire he now knew exactly how to protect. It arrived in a plain, unmarked envelope. No logo, no return address, just her name, and a silence louder than any threat. Inside the envelope, 3 items. First, a single fake $100 bill, crisp, identical to the one she ran off with. Second, a USB drive, small, silver. On it, surveillance footage, the kiss, the bag, the lie. Third, a folded piece of stationery, cream white, ink black, handwritten. "This is what you stole. This is what you lost. This is why you'll never matter to me again." No signature, no sender, no closure. Because closure was never hers to claim. It wasn't revenge, it was declaration. A final line drawn in quiet ink. John never followed up, never asked if she received it. He knew she did, because from that day forward, Ria never posted again. No photos, no quotes, no selfies of champagne nights or silk sheets. Just silence. The kind that fills a room when someone realizes they can never rewrite their ending, and the person they betrayed already has. 1 year later, almost to the exact day, John's phone lit up at 6:03 a.m. No name, no profile picture, just a burner account. The message was short. "You won. I lost everything. Hope you're happy." He didn't need to guess who it was. He didn't need to open her profile. He didn't even blink. John stared at the screen for a moment. Not with rage, not with victory, just reflection. He remembered the nights he used to wait for her to come home, the way her voice sounded when she laughed at someone else's jokes, the way he used to believe. And then he typed back, slow, deliberate. "You didn't lose everything. You never had anything to lose, because you never deserved it in the first place. He hit send, blocked the account, deleted the thread. Then he put the phone down, stood up, and opened the blinds. The morning sun poured in, warm, steady, unforgiving. Looking back, John no longer saw the betrayal as a tragedy. He saw it as a filter, a fire that burned away the falsehoods, the illusions. The lies he once told himself about loyalty, about love, about who truly stood beside him, it didn't destroy him, it refined him. He didn't seek revenge. He didn't need it. Because real power is not in burning someone back. It's in walking through the fire and coming out golden. He rebuilt his company, his mind, his boundaries, his silence. He stopped looking for someone to complete him. He started becoming someone who couldn't be broken again. The man who once handed over a leather bag filled with trust now carried himself like a fortress. And Rhea, she became nothing more than a footnote in the origin story of something greater. Because sometimes you don't get closure by watching them suffer. You get it by realizing you don't need them to matter. He didn't build walls. He built a castle. And the ashes, they were just the proof he survived. Sometimes life burns everything down, not to punish you, but to reveal who was never meant to stand in your castle. Not everyone you trust deserves to sit at your table. Not every smile hides good intentions. But here's the truth. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure from them. You need clarity and the courage to rebuild without apology. Because the greatest comeback isn't about proving them wrong. It's about becoming someone so strong, so whole, that their absence doesn't leave a mark anymore. If this story made you think, if it made you feel, if it made you remember who you are, then this is your space. Subscribe to Pieces of Soul, where stories don't just entertain, they heal, they reveal, and sometimes they rebuild you, one truth at a time.